15 years. A brutal and senseless murder remained an unsolved mystery. But in 2022, an arrest has been made, and finally the family of Anita Knutson can prepare to get some answers. In 2007, an 18-year-old from Minot, North Dakota was found dead in her apartment. She was discovered by her father, on her bed, drenched in her own blood. This murder was labeled a brutal killing, and because the police couldn't find motive, it was a difficult case to solve. Anita Knutson was 18 years old when she studied elementary education at Minot University. At that time, she lived in an apartment complex with a roommate, and she worked multiple jobs to cover the costs of college. She was adopted by Gordon and Sharon Knutson at a young age. So were her siblings, Anna and Daniel. Her family described her as a happy, kind, loving child, and a person who always found a way to make someone else feel important. Anita was known to keep in close contact with her parents, but all this changed when out of nowhere, her parents noticed a sudden halt in communication and began to worry. This is when her father decided to drive to her apartment and check up on her to make sure she is okay. What he found would forever haunt his memories. When Anita's father arrived at her apartment on June 4th, 2007, he saw her car parked outside the apartment building. After knocking on the door repeatedly without any reaction, he asked maintenance workers to let him into the apartment. One of the maintenance workers pointed out that the protective screen in front of Anita's bedroom window was slashed. Another witness said he noticed it the Monday morning when he saw broken glass on the ground. When her father got inside, he walked to her room, and then what he saw would cease to be his worst nightmare. He found his young daughter face down on her bed, stabbed multiple times, covered with a big trench coat. They established that he found his daughter's lifeless body one day after she was murdered. And even though the police found the murder weapon, a knife, on the scene, they soon realized that there was no motive behind this senseless death. Nothing was stolen, Anita wasn't sexually assaulted, and the door was locked from the inside. The first list of suspects was quite long, but everything was a dead end. Every lead they had turned to cold. A few temporary roofers, a neighbor whom she had a friendship and history with, and the maintenance worker were all part of the list of suspects. But that was how far they got. That and DNA from the crime scene. One thing that is worth a mention is that reports stated that she didn't get along with her roommate, and that said roommate had physically attacked her once when they had an argument. But the police confirmed she had a solid alibi, as she was home with her parents far away from the apartment at the time. Bad news kept on coming in for the Knutsons. Not only did they lose a daughter without any explanation or justice, but they also lost their son Daniel to suicide in 2013. Anna Knutson believed that her brother's actions were due to the unsolved brazen deaths of his sister, who was a joy to them, a happy and loving person. "Whoever killed my sister had a hand in killing my brother as well," Anna Knutson said. In 2007, the case of Anita Knutson aired on the 100th episode of Cold Justice, a show about a prosecutor and investigator who goes through evidence of cold cases. In this episode, they worked together with a few of the local detectives and investigators who were involved in the case from the start. The police department of Minot gave them access to the evidence they had on this case, which attracted a lot of attention, from the FBI to podcasters. They carefully went through all the facts and details of the case, including the first responders' reports, stating that Anita had been stabbed 2 times in her chest. The fatal blow was the wound that lacerated her heart. They ran DNA tests on the knife and other evidence, but needless to say, it led them nowhere. One thing that stood out for them was the window in Anita's apartment. They assumed that this might have been how the murderer entered the apartment. Marty Annell, who was the complex's maintenance worker, said that on the 4th of June, Monday, he noticed the screen was damaged and removed it. claiming that he didn't see Anita's body when he did that. 1 year later, he shot himself. Coincidence? Was he perhaps somehow involved in the killing of Anita Knutson? The fact that Anita's father said that he saw Anita lying there and that he reached out and touched her when he looked through the window kind of debunks Marty's statement that he did not notice her on the bed. The 4 suspects that were investigated again was Tyler Schmaltz, who turned out to just be a harmless crush, Michael Van, the last person to text Anita, Marty Annell, who was mentioned above, and Nicole Rice, Nicole Thomas at the time, who also happened to be her roommate during the time she was murdered. They crammed through text messages, and the only texts that raised eyebrows were those between Anita and Nicole. They could clearly see that they had a toxic relationship. Even though Nicole Rice, Knutson's roommate, had an alibi and it was supported by her parents, she was still subjected to interviews and polygraph tests. The Cold Justice team pointed out something interesting though. They have seen quite a few crime scenes, and they thought this one looked staged. Not only that, other evidence pointed to the fact that the murderer did not escape or enter through the window, but rather through the front door, which was completely locked when she was found dead by her father. And it was not a push-turn lock, but it had to be opened with a key. Who had a key to the apartment in June 2007? On March 16, 2022, an arrest was made. 15 years later, Anita Knutson's murderer was arrested. Nicole Rice was charged with Class AA murder in a preliminary hearing held in September 2022. The case was laid out by Minot police officer Macaulay Talbot after she started working through the case in 2018. She claimed Rice's statement had a few holes in it. So did her alibi on the night of the murder. Macaulay Talbot also noticed quite a few statements by people who knew both Anita and Nicole, wherein it was made clear that although these 2 roommates were best friends since they were kids, their relationship started growing a little toxic and they had a few altercations, and some of them got quite physical, as stated previously. Apparently, their relationship turned so stale that Anita had installed a lock on her door a month before she was found dead. Authorities noted that an ex-boyfriend of Nicole Rice told them she confessed to the murder of Anita after she got belligerently drunk at a party where they had a conversation about the murder. She told him that she did it. When he asked her about this after she sobered up, she denied everything angrily. Even though Nicole told the police that she was at her parents' farm in North Dakota over the weekend, this story got confusing when it changed over the years. And even more so when a witness told the police that Nicole was at a bar in Russo in North Dakota, approximately 40 miles from Minot, where their apartment was. She spent Saturday night there, which turned into Sunday morning. And when she left the bar, she said she was going back to her apartment to get some clothes. Nicole's defense attorney argued that the person who was seen by a witness running away from the apartment was Devin Hall, who broke into an apartment nearby just a few days later, and he stated that this was the murderer, not Nicole Rice. Devin Hall was ruled out as a suspect when witnesses confirmed they saw him arriving at the train station the night after the murder. Naturally, Nicole Rice pleaded not guilty, but Judge Richard Hager ruled that there was enough evidence to proceed with a trial. The pre-trial was scheduled for the 16th of November 2022. If Nicole Rice is found guilty, she will face life in prison without parole. Hopefully this trial will give the Knutson family peace and answers, and we know that the truth will set them free. If you found this video interesting, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button. This way you won't miss any of our content.